And good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Futsal868 Corner Talks. My name is Geoffrey Edwards, series moderator and president of the Futsal Association of Trinidad Tobago. Futsal868 Corner Talks is an online meetup series where global sporting professionals share their perspectives and experiences on the fastest growing indoor sport in the world, futsal. In recent sessions, we expanded to discuss topics of social issues and their relation to sport. For the month of April, for which we say, first and foremost, Happy Easter, Futsal868 Corner Talks will host Futsal in CONCACAF. The four-part series aims to sensitize and educate all to the sport of futsal in the Confederation. Our guests will assist to provide an in-depth look at the game of futsal in their countries and regions of the Caribbean, Latin, and North America. Today, in episode 46, we commence a series. Our guest is Stephen McGettigan, founder of global acclaimed website Futsal Solutions. We want to welcome Stephen to the show. Good day, Stephen, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me on, Jeffrey. Glad to be here.
Stephen, we have been speaking for over a year as regards to futsal globally, and it has a pleasure to be able to speak to somebody of you when it comes to this, discussing futsal not only globally but more so in Trinidad and Tobago. You have been a source of information to me as an individual, a leader, as regards to how we could grow the game of futsal. So first and foremost, I want to say Happy Easter to you and your family, and once again, thank you for being a part of it. So we're going to dive straight into the conversation as regards to futsal in CONCACAF. And in doing that, we want to take a moment to recognize the amount of work that futsal's focus has done when it comes to interviewing persons all around the world, organizations, clubs, teams, coaches, administrators. Thank you very much for that, Stephen, for your vision. And as you say, before the end of the year, you will be a great number of followers on social media. I'll leave you to give us the numbers. But CONCACAF, give me your perspective on the interviews you have done one by one as regards and the countries that you have spoken to. What is the outlook as regards to these countries in CONCACAF and their relation to futsal?
Well, having thought a lot about this, if we start from the top, would you like to go from the grassroots up or from the top down? How would you like to approach things?
However you do it, because we're going to have a discussion, because we are part of CONCACAF. Trinidad and Tobago is part of CONCACAF, so we're definitely going to have a discussion. I just want to hear from you as regards to, futsal focus, having interviewed many of these countries, tell us whether it be bottom up, top down, whatever approach you're comfortable with. We'll be more than happy to engage.
Well, firstly, if you start from the grassroots, is the level of participation is huge, which I don't think a lot of people realize and know. And the enthusiasm and passion for the sport is just as big as well. More and more people's eyes are being opened to the beauty of our sport, the opportunities within it, and its growth around the world. But just like we have in other confederations, be it in UEFA, you have more nations a bit more established, obviously, than others. And you have countries that are in a position to reach the next level with the right investment and infrastructure. And when I say the next level, I mean, like, if you look at Costa Rica, futsal would be one of their top sports, probably second only under football. And the infrastructure they have from a recreational sense is huge. It's got a large amount of participation across the nation, and a lot of courts to be used for different competitions. But for them to take that development to improve the coaching level and to improve the talent that they have, international courts would need to be more accessible, which they don't have. So that's going to take investment. They have, university competitions. They have a national league. They have a national team. And everything is going in the right direction. But it's now for them, it's not that now for other countries, they're trying to grow their participation. That's not an issue for Costa Rica. For them as well, they have league for women and men. And obviously they want to continue to grow that. And they have a good standard of futsal playing. But it's that professionalism is the next step for them. The clubs being a lot better structured, a lot more professionalism within them. Because right now what they have is more amateur clubs and some clubs paying players. And these clubs will come, make an impact, win championships, but then disappear because they can't be sustainable. They're not getting their money, not getting return on their investment. So that's not good for the sport, for people to see these clubs come, play for a few years and then disappear. What they need is consistency, and they need, clubs having a structured guidance in terms of how to develop. So that's the next step for them, because they have great coaching. They've got coaches who are in other countries now, when it comes to goalkeeping and technical. So that's what is for them is just how do we bridge that from the amateur into the professionalism and bring everybody up together, and also to improve the coaching at the grassroots level, because they have all this participation, but now they're looking at what is the quality of the delivery of that participation. What are the quality of the coaches within these communities? And we want to improve that so we can improve, because from the grassroots up, if they improve that quality of delivery of coaching, obviously that's going to feed into the national team. And Costa Rica have been so close, when it came to the last World Cup, like they drew with Argentina 2-2, who went on to win it. They did so well. They beat, the Solomon Islands, and who have dominated the Oceania. So they know they're on the bridge to the next stage. How do we get there? How do we grow to that? When you go to like Nicaragua, which I spoke with Roger Hernandez there, I remember, like many of us, we saw the final with his team Juventus in it, and there was this huge number of people watching the game, and it was a few thousand, and everybody was shocked. Like, we haven't heard of this in Nicaragua, that there was this popular. So from talking to him, I learned that for many years, again, from a recreational sense, futsal is very popular there. But they hadn't seen it from is this really an opportunity to grow for a coach, for a career, for development? And that all changed in the last 5 years when the Football Association launched their national league. And they now have 24 clubs, and they're thinking about opening up a second division because they've got so much demand from other clubs to want to join. So that's what they're looking at now, to expand their divisions. But also, Roger is also the national futsal manager, the head coach, and they're obviously preparing like Trinidad for the coming tournament for qualification for the World Cup. But when I asked him, because for me, because I'm in futsal just over 10 years, I'm still learning about what's going on every day around the world. Nicaragua had never stood out to me. And then suddenly Roger saying, we're confident that we can put in a good performance and challenge for a place. And I was like, okay, well, I look forward to see that, because I thought that he would see this competition as maybe a stepping stone, but no, they want to go and compete, and good luck to them, and so when I'm talking to them, it was interesting to me that talking to some people in Costa Rica or Nicaragua is that there's all this enthusiasm for the sport, but there's also a bridge for an understanding of what's going on around the world, and that's in many countries. That's not just isolated to nations in CONCACAF. They love the sport, but what is going on? Where are the opportunities around the world? That's another thing that needs to happen. As I talk about more nations, is that people have asking me, like, where's it professional? And I told them that there was a level of professionalism in Japan. Some of the clubs are fully professional or semi-professional. They didn't know that. They didn't know about Thailand. They didn't know the growth of the sport there, or the growth of the sport in Indonesia. So there's a lack of knowledge and education that still needs to come on board there for a lot of people. So the association there, if the media isn't going to provide that, needs to be looking at, we're doing all this investment to develop our coaching courses and our leagues, but we need to be educating these people too about what's going on around the world, because you be enthusiastic about your domestic league, but you also want to know what's going on in your neighboring countries and around the world and what are the opportunities. So then when you go to like Dominican Republic, I was speaking with their director of futsal, Julio Gustavo Gimundo. Apologies, my Spanish pronunciation isn't great, but he was telling me, prior to him, I don't know if you remember, but the previous president, who's gone now, because of the corruption issues that Trinidad, the Dominican Republic had, when that previous president was there, he had a big vision for futsal and beach soccer, and he actually brought Roy Blanche from Canada down. He was with the Futsal Club Toronto. He brought him down to be the national manager. They wanted to do a national league, but then when the corruption allegations came out and everything changed and he was removed and FIFA stepped in, obviously a lot of the development was put on hold. But they've now changed that now. But their vision is, we want to slow it down a bit. We see the importance of a national league and we want to get there, and it remains a priority because we know pathways are important of all kinds, but we're going to focus more on participation and growing it more at the grassroots level. And they're actually going to be launching soon a program into schools with the backing of FIFA to help improve the delivery of coaching and the experience for the young people are in competitions and things like that. And also for them is, again, like many countries, it's infrastructure. They're playing on not possibly all the time the best surfaces for futsal, but they're using what they have to introduce people to the game. A lot of people don't agree with that, but I believe that nothing should prevent the development of futsal. You use what you have, and then you work towards developing the game and providing better quality as each year goes by, and whilst the sports awareness increases, and then the commercial sector start to understand it, and then you start to be able to attract that investment that you need to provide the right infrastructure. But for them, though, there is a concentration on how do we improve our national team, because they want the national team to perform well. They want the national team to challenge, so it ignites an interest in the back home, obviously among the public. So they're looking at not just domestically identifying talented players for men and women, but also internationally. And I've actually helped them get in contact with a few people around the world who know people from the Dominican Republic playing in other nations, so they can have a better, branch out into other nations to see who's out there. So that would be the Dominican Republic at this time. When you look at other countries, there are countries who lead on this, like Guatemala and Honduras, and but you also have countries like Panama where the association backs the national team, but when you start to go down to domestic, it's more driven by individuals. So another frustration for a lot of people is, whether it's Central America or North America, is that they feel that Mexico and the United States, and Canada don't take futsal seriously enough. Now, that's not going to prevent them from continuing with what they want to do. But they are aware of how important those nations are from a commercial and media point of view. If Mexico takes it up seriously and the Mexican media starts to drive awareness of futsal, then there'll be a domino effect into the media in other countries, because Mexico is taking futsal seriously at that level. The same with the United States. The United States starts to take more of an interest in the sport at a media and commercial level. There'll be a knock-on effect, and the same with Canada. And they're waiting for these associations to understand how, yes, futsal is a separate sport, but it's also a partner. We should be looking at futsal as a player development partner and giving young people options to suit their abilities. So that is a big frustration for these people who are driving the sport, is they need these nations to come on board and they feel that that's not happening. Now, I've reached out to countries in the lead up to this interview to try and get more of an understanding of what's going on now in Mexico and Guatemala. And unfortunately, some of these nations didn't get back to me. And when they did, it wasn't in time for this interview. So I can't dive into a lot of information or what's currently going on or what are the outlooks of these associations in places like Mexico, or the leadership that Guatemala is showing at this time. But what I can say for those people who are watching this interview and feeling a lot of frustration, especially if you're talking about the United States, the United States actually is, for me, is in an exciting, wonderful period for futsal because of I would call it an awakening is happening. You've had people from, like Keith Tozer. He was the national manager for a long time, and he's been an advocate driving the sport, and his connection with John Parry at US Youth Futsal. And you also have Rob Andrews, United Futsal, who is renowned for their quality of competitions, be it in Orlando, Florida, or in Barcelona. And they also just recently launched the United Futsal University, where they want to have a structured pathway for coach education. So that's something for people watching this to go check out their website. Keith also, with the US Youth Futsal, has launched coaching education, and they've been doing introductory level 1, level 2, and it's been getting world recognition, getting endorsement from people all across the futsal world, highly respected people in coaching and business, who are saying that these qualifications are fantastic, and anyone can access them online. And Keith has put a lot of work into that, as have others assisting him. So you have to celebrate that with those people at United Futsal and their passion for the sport. And you also remember Keith Tozer and Rob are also involved with the PFL, which I'll come to later. But you also have other people who've been driving the sport since the 80s. You have Alexander Para, he's the president and CEO of US Futsal, and they're driving competitions and coach education as well. And when the American futsal team was suspended for a while, it's back now, and it has a new manager in Dusan. Apologies with the pronunciations, guys. Apologies. Dusan Jakika, I think that's how you pronounce it. Apologies again on the mispronunciation, but his assistant manager as well with Orif. And these are passionate people about the sport of futsal, have been driving it for many, many years, and working together to see it grow domestically and internationally. And then you have now, when you start to look at what people would refer to as the system outside of, just as I mentioned, the national team, which is obviously under US Soccer. But when you come to the structure down into the grassroots, a big one has to be US Youth Soccer coming on board, which has close to, I believe, 3 million players registered across the United States, and what they call is 55 states, because some of the states are broken into 2. But in terms of how they govern and relegate them. But they have now started to see the opportunity with futsal, and they're now looking to promote the game among their members, and they're looking at how they can do that. Right now it's very much a research that's been driven by a man called Tom Gondon, and he's looking at and talking to people like Connie, who I know is your head coach for Trinidad. They're talking about now is, how do we build this future futsal culture? We have a soccer culture, but how can we have this futsal culture alongside it? How do we develop that among our members and provide quality pathways and competitions? So right now it's very much research, but I'm sure we'll soon hear on what their plans are. And they're also reaching out to other people across the United States and talking to them to find out what's the best way forward, which is great because, when you've had people, futsal specific organizations driving the sport so long, and then you have US youth soccer come in. And, like when you look at US youth futsal, some of their clubs would be registered to them for futsal, but would have been registered with youth soccer for soccer. And then now you've got youth soccer saying, well, we're going to do futsal. So there needs to be a lot of conversations, a lot of discussion to see how all these organizations can work together in a way that no one feels threatened, and they can do it, because America is a massive country. There is a place for everyone, and the knowledge base there has to be tapped into. Like I said, youth soccer on a research part now, so they need to tap into youth futsal, like Keith and John Parra and Rob Andrews, and learn from them and work with them. But this is the thing, you see, for a long time, my views of the United States was like futsal was like the wild west. It was just all over the place, people looking for opportunity, trying to develop the game, but lack of leadership and structure. And I hope with the PFL now in place, but hasn't launched yet, but it's there. And then with United Futsal and then US Youth Futsal and US Youth Soccer. And then you also have the US Soccer Foundation, which is driving a strategy, what they call mini pitches, but it's really futsal courts. But, I plan to speak to them soon to get a real better understanding of what it is they're trying to do. But with them driving those courts all across America, and then you have Major League Soccer teams like Orlando Football Club, Los Angeles Football Club. You also have Houston Dynamo now looking at futsal. And, so these clubs, some of them are developing outdoor futsal courts. One of the best ones I saw was actually Orlando Football Club. They have this outdoor futsal court that has like grass plots around it for people to be able to, for older people also to be able to like grow vegetables and fruits, and they're trying to make it a real like family orientated center of the community place for people to come and play sport, and also to engage with all different types of people. And they're looking at other things to do for the community. It's really being driven by their community hub. So like even outside of that, you have school districts that are developing futsal courts. You also have people in the Hall of Fame, like you have Anson Dorrance, who is like one of the most, if not the most successful coach in athletics at the university level, at university in North Carolina. And he is, everyone admires him for his success. And then he came out through Futsal Focus, an article that we done with him, that he's actually been using futsal for many years as part of his player development. And so many people message me and couldn't believe that, like, Anson Dorrance has been using futsal. Like, why did we never know this? So like, this is what I mean with people like this, Hall of Famers, like Joe Macknick, who was part of this, was the assistant manager for the United States at the first ever World Cup, when they did so well, getting to the final. So it's like, and Joe Macknick is a Hall of Famer because he's seen as a builder for the game of soccer, and he's admired by so many people because he's been involved. If it isn't, the indoor game, it's the outdoor game, and he's been part of the national team staff and for the US soccer team, and he's been part of the Major League Soccer director of refereeing. So when you have people like him coming out and saying that futsal is the future, and we need to look at it from a coaching perspective and player development, and he's saying, like the NBA should look at futsal, because if depending on when the season will be, the PFL or any other organization could be using their facilities. He's also saying that, like Major Arena Soccer League, yes, this is very much a part of our soccer tradition and history and culture. But maybe they have to look at futsal and think, well, is this a progression for us? Is this something that we should be looking at, or do we continue with our own version of indoor soccer? And then you also have like Anson Dorrance was all for. He's of the opinion that the women's league, when it's their off season, should introduce a short futsal league. And some of the women will go off to England and play in other countries in the off season. But there are a lot of women who don't, and they sit idle back in the United States. And he thinks it would be an opportunity for them to continue to possibly get paid and play the sport. And it gives the women's league the opportunity to test the market and see if how the American public reacts to this short league for the women's game. And then if it's successful, try to branch that out into its own full season. And I think that's visionary. And I honestly believe that in many countries, with the women's game might be the first option really to get it to the professional level, more opportunity maybe to push it, because we're seeing the growth of women's football all around the world. And I think that the women, when it comes to business development and opportunity, the women's game is massive at the moment, and be it football and futsal is another opportunity on top of that. Because when you think again, like just the normal ones, the player development opportunities, it just makes sense. Then when you come to Canada, the Canadian Soccer Association has a national team, as we know, and you have people there who love the sport, like Chris Fernandez, who big part of Futsal Canada and driving competition and growth of the game there, and trying to educate people about how important futsal is, and then you also have people like Roy Blanche and his partner Veronica at Futsal Club Toronto, who have been building their club, got their own facility, have brought coaches from like AFC instructors over and trying to educate people and drive awareness. You also have national provisional competitions and championships, and you have the Futsal Canada Championships, and so there's also people like Born to Play Futsal. You have Andrea Benton and Alvaro Felipe G. Almeida, who are doing their own show and trying to educate people about, like yourself, about what's going on around the world. So for me, looking at all this development, I know there's frustration for a lot of people, because we love this sport so much. We want to see it achieve what the product deserves. But I think there needs to be patience, because the love is there, the passion is there, the leadership is coming. There are people who are driving it. And I think it's just a matter of time. I honestly do. But when I think, though, of the PFL, however, you've got that basketball influence, because you've got Mark Cuban, who's the principal owner. You've got Donnie Nelson, who's the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, involved. You've got Rob's involved, Keith's involved. But what we're looking at there is the PFL going to continue with these different rules that they're considering? They're not going with FIFA's rules. So if that's the national competition, and you have the American public looking at this, different form of the game, and they're getting growing awareness of the sport, and then they look to Europe and they're like, well, that's a different form of futsal. Why are we playing this other form of futsal? And but I don't know if they're talking to FIFA, or what their plans are there, or if they're still thinking to continue with it with the 4 quarters and different things like that. But so I do have a question. I think you
No. I'm first and foremost, I want, for my guests' purpose, I want to let them understand, as we said before, Stephen of Futsal Focus has covered futsal for the last 10 years globally. So to have him on the show to start up the 4-part series as regards to futsal and CONCACAF is very impressive. Around that same time that you started Futsal Focus, Stephen, I will jump in here to have a balance of conversation, because you spoke more to Latin America and to North America. 8 years ago, I was invited to 8 to 10 years ago, I was invited to Guatemala to be a part of a think tank session with leaders within CONCACAF, and it was actually the same time as the first ever CONCACAF Club Futsal Championship. And I had to prepare at that meeting a SWOT analysis for the Caribbean region, who makes up 1/3 of CONCACAF in terms of looking at it from North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean. But in terms of sheer numbers, the Caribbean islands represents the majority of CONCACAF. So I'm very happy that you give our viewers the analysis, the breakdown analysis of CONCACAF from Latin America and North America. And just to highlight some of your points, you mentioned national leagues, grassroots growth, coaching education, player pathways, infrastructure, association involvement, noting that many countries believe that the big three, in terms of Mexico, United States of America, and Canada, needs to take futsal serious in order to be able to have media and commercialization. So this is where the Caribbean comes in from a SWOT analysis standpoint. In terms of our weaknesses, many of the Caribbean islands do not have the infrastructure. So let's speak about what it is using your necessary criteria, informal criteria that you listed. Our weaknesses as the Caribbean islands are we don't have infrastructure. I will play a video as regards to what the difference with Trinidad and Tobago, because Trinidad and Tobago is driving indirectly without even knowing it, have been driving for years the conversation of futsal, and I'll discuss it a little later. Trinidad and Tobago has 8 regional indoor sporting arenas, of which one is going to be built in Tobago. Outside of that, you have private entities such as the one that the Trinidad and Tobago men's national futsal team is playing in, which is the International School Port of Spain. And then you have the University of West Indies, who has a brilliant modern facility as well. Going up the islands, there are not as much facilities. So again, repeating, infrastructure-wise, that's one of our weaknesses. In terms of coaching education, through CONCACAF and FIFA, the association, the national governing body, the member association have to request from FIFA and or CONCACAF coaching education. So if your leader does not see the importance of futsal and or beach soccer into your development pathway, into your infrastructure, into your structure as a footballing body, then definitely you may not have coaching education. And then when it is you have coaching education, you may have one every 2 years, one every 4 years, and that is something that is very much lacking. That also affects grassroots development, because many associations believe we are now getting up and running when it comes to football. Why am I going to add futsal to that? Why am I going to divide a population that may be 500,000, 200,000, and create that, different pathways for children, when really and truly, based on what it is, we want football to remain the number one sport in the island. Now, what is very interesting and distinct when it comes, and this is where the advantages comes in. Advantages: weather. The Caribbean is blessed with 2 seasons: rainy weather and dry season. The Martinique Football Association, and I'm going to say Football Association because they are under the FFF, as well as Guadeloupe, through the grants of the FFF, has installed weather permitting outdoor futsal courts, which allows their patrons to be able to play futsal at any time, both seasons, dry season and wet season. Mm-hmm. So in terms of weather, the Caribbean islands is perfect for futsal, especially when it comes to outdoor. And why is that important? Because when it is you look at the development of futsal initially was played outside. It is only in recent times, in terms of the commercialization of futsal, that futsal went indoors. But futsal traditionally was played outdoors. So from a developmental standpoint, it augurs well for the Caribbean islands to be able to use the necessary resources that they have and start with an outdoor product, noting that it may be very expensive to have an indoor product as regards to infrastructure. Now, another strength that the Caribbean has is using the model of cricket. The West Indies, which is represented in the International Cricket Council as one organization made up of a number of islands, have always had regional tournaments. The Caribbean Premier League, which is a international cricket tournament held here in the Caribbean, sees the movement of franchises across the islands. That CPL product is number 2 only to the IPL. And with that being said, it clearly shows that from a Caribbean standpoint, a professional futsal league is more than viable, which also, when you add the numbers in terms of all of the islands together, you can rival United States of America or even Canada in terms of share numbers, noting the Caribbean diaspora who will be looking at this product and being like, yeah, I like it. For us, by us, created to be able to showcase who we are. And we already have ESPN Caribbean who showcases, the very viability of the sporting product that is the Caribbean. The Caribbean is not short of sporting products. Another opportunity is the fact that we do not have to vie for all the different sporting products or sporting outings that the big three you speak about. Mexico has F1, and this goes across to Mexico. All of the major sporting international federations try to be able to have tournaments and events in those big three, as well as traditionally speaking, North America, in terms of Canada and United States of America, always saw football as the bastard child. So for you now to be able to change a culture, that is going to take years. That is may even take decades. Some of the person that you mentioned may not even be alive by the time that happens. Compare that to Trinidad and Tobago and the other Caribbean islands, where football is already a mainstay. Is football, when it is you grew up, is football, football, cricket, athletics. And so therefore, you already at advantage from an administrative standpoint, from a sport developmental standpoint, because you have a variant of the game that is naturally played on the streets of the Caribbean islands, that is naturally played, that you could be able to execute said and be able to develop said. So I love the balance that we created. And with that being said, I want to hear your opinion on that before it is we take a break. Because as we promised, Stephen, we're going to have a conversation. It's not going to be you alone speaking, brother. So, so I want to hear your point on that.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't have, I can, you've taught me a lot there. I'm going to take, from you that knowledge, because, I wasn't aware of that in terms of the Caribbean. And, but it's exciting, and like you said, the best point for me, out of all of that, is really, like you said, is the time that this will take, and because what I find, having FIFA as our governing body has its positives and its negatives, because FIFA is investing in a World Cup. UEFA has its UEFA Futsal Euros. AFC has their competitions. I have FIFA got football. Futsal has replaced football at the Youth Olympics, which is a wonderful step. But what people in futsal continue to do is because we have football alongside us, we look at that and we see all the money in that, all the development in that. And we think, why is futsal taking so long? Why are we not getting the recognition and the awareness that football has? Because, and it's a normal emotion to have when, even like myself, I'm so passionate about the game. But I sometimes have to step back a bit and go, take a deep breath, you know what I mean? And be at times have to be realistic, just because we have the same governing body, we are two separate sports, and they have to be commercially viable, financially, sustainable, and futsal has to pay for itself. At this time, FIFA and its federations are taking money away from football and giving it to futsal to develop it. But they aren't getting the same return on the sport, And sometimes people forget that with the emotion, because when they've been invested in certain ways and they don't see the money coming their way to help them to develop whatever it is they're trying to develop, and then they look at all this money going to football, they think, well, we're under FIFA too, why are we being neglected? But we have to see, futsal's from the 1930s. Football is from the 19th century. It has taken a long time, You know, if you even look at the Premier League, you know, you look at football right up to the 80s. Yes, you had mass participation. You had professional clubs even at that time. You had European competitions. But it took the creation of Sky Sports and that massive investment in the Premier League to develop what we have today, because the commercial sector saw the opportunity now within football to make more money, which is when you had SoccerX developed, which does conferences around the world. And then you had more businesses coming in to help with scouting systems, performance, everything to develop the game. Sorry, go ahead.
Interesting you mentioned that, Stephen, because another humanities lesson from University of Montfort, where I did the humanities section for the FIFA Master. It is also important to understand that the EPL came out of a period in response to hooliganism in the English game that the then Prime Minister of England, given the Liverpool fiasco, had to be able to say enough is enough. So out of death came an opportunity. And I'm happy that you mentioned the commercialization part of it. But we have to also understand that opportunity, that new product that we enjoy every Saturday and Sunday, that is the EPL, came as a result of blood, sweat, and tears. Noting, as you rightfully said, the codification of the sport of football has been centuries old, given the fact that football as a sport has been played even before that codifications, for centuries before that, because there have been historical recordings of football in China, by the Mayans in Mexico, and so forth, so forth. Just the codification came from the United Kingdom, right? But you made a very important point. The commercialization part of it is what helped the EPL. And it's very important that as persons within CONCACAF, we have to creep before we walk, but we have to be very strategic in our move forward. Definitely. And I'm very happy that you mentioned that.
Well, I think if we take our break now and then come back to it, I think it will be an interesting way to start the next section of the interview.
Most definitely. So you're watching Futsal 868. This is part 1 of Futsal and CONCACAF. I have my brother Steve out with me. Futsal Focus, Futsal 868. We'll be right back. Powered by Lucozade. But take a look at one of our national futsal players as he put in his personal work and how Lucozade helped him thereafter.
Hi, good day. This is Kareem Perry. Now finished one of my personal workouts, and I just wanted to say from the national men's futsal team, thank you very much, Lucozade, for being our #1 sponsor. We really appreciate it.
So before the break, we spoke to Stephen, gave us an opportunity to, through his research and interviews, a look into the big three: Mexico, United States of America, Canada, and some of the countries that made up Latin America. And yours truly tried my utmost best to give an oversight as regards to a quick SWOT analysis, as you may, to the Caribbean region, which brings us now to the commercialization side of things. It's something that you and I, Stephen, spoke a lot to, and it's one of the things that you mentioned in your informal criteria when you was given the breakdown. So let's give a back end story to this. Let's put this into context. You have Brazil, you have Spain. Let's look at England. Even countries such as Thailand, and I have my friends in the African continent, all speaking or having successful futsal leagues. The Spanish league is one of the most sought after, as well as Magnus in Brazil. But the commercialization and the commercial power that is behind it is extreme, whereby their social media is buzzing with content, with the amount of things that they're able to achieve. Put that in the context of CONCACAF. What do you think we can or should do to be able to drive commercialization? And when it is you do that, I will give you a model that I think can work here, especially from the Caribbean side of things.
Well, firstly, how I'd like to start is that as much as we can pick out places like you just mentioned, but Brazil is a different animal, because Brazil is basically, yes, futsal started in Uruguay, but what we know of the sport today is really the futsal. Brazil is the home of modern day futsal, and for them, futsal and football had decades of growing together. There's a mutual respect and understanding there. And also futsal is potentially the number one sport in Brazil. I think the last time I spoke to someone there, the registry of players was around 12 million, and they believe that their market could be as big as 30 million. People have to understand, Brazil is a population of around 211 million. You know what I mean? People, it's a massive country. But even at that, when you look at the LNF, and there's still so much growth potential there. It's an example to the rest of the world, but it could be so much bigger. And when you look at in Spain, the Liga Nacional de Futsal Sala, and the conflict happening there between them and the Football Association and the new league at the moment. And then you have, well, not new league, but I mean, the Football Association has taken over. It's been a rebrand. And because of audiovisual rights, media rights, the Liga Nacional is still there for the next 3 years, I think. But there's been a lot of conflict between the clubs as well, still wearing the Liga Nacional de Futsal's badge. But what I'm getting at anyway is that, to answer your question, is yes, those countries are there and they're examples, and they're the best we have for professional futsal, but there is still growth for all of them. And when I look at the commercial sector, when I look at futsal, all I really see is FIFA, its confederations, leagues and clubs, household brands like your Umbro and your Penalty and your Joma and everything else, and Kelmy. But other than that, nothing really. Nothing really. There's no commercial sector catering to the futsal industry. And because of that, what you find is within the futsal industry is constant competition for the money that they believe is there. And also sometimes the system hinders the commercial potential by competing with people like myself trying to develop services and for the futsal industry. And sometimes that can be very frustrating for the commercial sector. You don't want to be competing with the same system you're trying to support. You know what I mean? You're trying to work with them, not compete with them. But when you look at what can you learn from Brazil, what can you learn from Spain to do in the CONCACAF, for me, it's simple. It is the delivery, even at an amateur level, of quality competitions. But it's not just a competition. It's how do you position that competition? How do you market that competition? How is it viewed? What is the quality of the content? Unfortunately, when I look at futsal around the world, sometimes I see content going up and I'm like, please take that off because it looks so poor. Please, don't put that up there. Like
you're being cruel, Stephen.
No, but I'm being honest. I believe don't have tournaments and things for, if you're going to have a competition and it's for your community, doesn't mean it has to be up online. Let your community enjoy that. But we have to remember how people engage with the sport and look at it and see what is the value in there, what is the investment in there. Because that's what I get asked all the time is, where is the money in futsal? Why should I invest in it? Where's the money? Where's the commercial sector? Where can I? And a lot of it always returns to participation, because that is really where we are at now, even in the CONCACAF. Yes, you have countries like I already said, like Costa Rica, who can bridge into the professional level. And you have Nicaragua with 24 clubs. I'm not saying they're close to being, breaching all of them into professionalism, but Juventus has a professional football club. It's in professional structure, But really how we have to start this is through improving the quality of and the positioning and how we market our sport, so it is attractive to more people to drive interest, because that is the only way businesses will want to get involved when they see quality competition. And because I have noticed, even at the system level, forget about the commercial and independence and that, FIFA just adding the under 19 Euros and the women's Euros. And then you're having now, other competitions that are coming, like in the AFC women's, and that futsal focuses following jumped within a couple of years, like 50,000, 60,000 is right over, because there was more people getting a better content, better quality of competition, driving interest. Then when the Youth Olympics came, it jumped up another 40,000. Because people saw the Youth Olympics and they're looking for information, and they happen to come across futsal focus. And it's the same when you look at places that are trying to drive the game, like in Thailand, they're now getting to love the game. So they understand their domestic game. So they want to know what's going on around the world. And that's hard. So this is what we have to do. And I would recommend, in the CONCACAF, is drive quality competition. Now, where does that come from? Because when you think of it, is when you see how large CONCACAF is, when, like you said, you've got Canada, you've got North America, you've got Central America, you've the Caribbean. Is it developed enough yet to host? Because I know that CONCACAF has hosted 2 club futsal championships, but they haven't done in recent years. And why is that? Well, if I'm looking at that from a business perspective, I'm thinking, what is the awareness of these clubs? What is the interest? Does anyone care? Does anyone want to watch? Do they know? Do the clubs themselves have enough following to drive interest, to watch it, to drive up viewership? Or is it that you focus on the national level, drive interest in the national teams, and then work your way down into the clubs once that infrastructure is there, once that development's there? Like you said, it may take 10, 20 years. But for me, I don't know all the financials of it, but maybe holding off on the club competition because it's so large, and who's going to stream it? What is going to be the interest? Do people want to watch these clubs? I don't know. You know what I mean? That's research that has to be done. But in the domestic level, it's quality competitions at all level, and it's participation. It's centers just one more point. Like if you look at Australia, you have fantastic work going on at the moment from like pro futsal, and they started with one center, and now they're being so successful with the quality of the services they're providing their clubs. They're now opening up centers for a club. A club is going to have its own center, And the business model that they have is that club can choose what percentage of risk they take. So they can say to Pro Futsal, we'll take 20%, you own 80%. But what Pro Futsal has done is give them the opportunity to own 100% once they're comfortable with having that. So they're now looking to expand that across Australia. There's going to be one open soon in Melbourne, So models like that, if you have an independent who's able to help clubs to take their time and assist them with their development, that's something to look at, that business model. If the clubs can't do it themselves completely 100%, well, then how can we assist them step by step to get there? Is that a league does that? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I totally hear you. I want to ask you questions specifically to two countries that you mentioned, Costa Rica and United States of America. You mentioned that United States of America, through the U.S. youth football, they have access to over 3 million youth to be able to participate. And then you also spoke as regards to the PFL and the persons who are back in the PFL. So the question now, and then you also mentioned that there's some Major League Soccer clubs who are actively investing in futsal, noting the constant that is time. Why is it that futsal has not done commercially well in the United States of America?
Well, because there's no, at the grassroots level, you have great competitions that have been driven since the 80s, like I said, from, US futsal and then US youth futsal. And then you have, United futsal. Like I said, a lot of them, the money to be made now is participation. It's growing and driving the quality competitions, but there needs to be more of it. And it needs to be more from, US soccer. It needs to be more from US Soccer Foundation if they do get involved in that. Also, you need to see it at a university level. Once the futsal hits the universities in America, it'll explode. This is what I'm talking about. There's the commercial sector at this time, really depending on the nation, because Costa Rica already has futsal universities. You know what I mean? They already have regional games, community level games. There's huge investment in futsal courts for health in general, get people out playing futsal for their health. So for them, it's more now, what do we do to branch into the professional level? And from what the conversations I've had, that's more the clubs need to do that. There needs to be more assistance to the clubs to help them to understand, how to structure their clubs better and how to make them sustainable. And then by doing so, taking that step by step, I think these countries too have to look at salary caps. You know what I mean? It's like, how do we do it and then expand the salary cap maybe, as we get more sustainable? There's so many models to look at. Major League Soccer has done that, like salary capped and you can have certain star players to get a little bit more, but they've built it within their means. And what I'm just getting at is that every nation needs to look at themselves and be realistic in terms of if you even look taken away from CONCACAF, but they can still learn. If you look at across the United Kingdom, the focus should really be, how do we produce the best amateur competition, quality amateur competition? People are trying to drive towards professionalism as soon as possible. And I understand that, people want to make a living from it. They want to be paid. They want to focus their lives on this, on their club. But, if one club does it, but the rest don't, you're going to, if Baku hadn't have lost its investment because of what happened with them, Baku would have just dominated, futsal in England. And then would that have been of benefit? Would someone else have come in to bring in that investment? I don't know. But Baku's not here no more. And, what we have is mainly amateur clubs. And the focus in my mind should be commercially, it should be better competitions, more of them, drive mass participation, make a market, then cater to that market. Because that's what we have to do, drive participation.
And if it's one thing I would add to that is to ensure that you have long-term athletic development model within that strategic plan that you have for your commercialization. so that you limit the fallout of athletes, and it should not always be competition driven, which we are seeing in the Caribbean that is affecting our sport. I want to jump to a question from one of our viewers, Stephen, and I ask you if it is you can answer, said. The question is as follows, and it comes from Damien Daniel. Thank you very much, Damien. Is the U.S. Indoor Soccer League a pathway to player development similar to college USL for us? And I think that question is both for you and myself. But so is the U.S. Indoor Soccer League a pathway to player development similar to college USL for us? From what I know is that there isn't much of a pathway for futsal players, much less indoor soccer players, which is the league that they have in the US running right now. There isn't much of a player pathway in terms of from college straight up to professional. From your research, Stephen, did you come across anything along those lines?
Well, if he's talking about, when he says US indoor soccer, if he means, major arena soccer league, if that's what he's talking about in the United States, no, that's not similar to college. No, major arena soccer league has big arenas that actually attracts large amount of people, depending, on the club and what fixture and stuff like that, obviously. But they do get audiences, and they are on TV in America. But a lot of people argue that major arena soccer may have reached a ceiling in terms of its development, and there's a lot of stuff need. If that sport wants to continue, it has to invest more in outreach into their communities, specific qualifications and stuff like that. But when it comes to college, and for me, when I think of like the best example for me, what I have an understanding of is that you have Bucks here in the United Kingdom, which is the British universities and college sport. And that's actually the largest futsal competition for men and women in the United Kingdom. And then you also have varsity competitions. Nottingham, Trent, and Nottingham University play each other. And that actually has the record for the highest amount of people attending a game, which was over 1,000 people attending. So if you're talking about college, I would associate it more to that. But college and university sport is huge potential. I really do think for futsal that should be a focus for many nations, and getting better quality content around that. Like I envy college sports in the United States and North America. I think that is fantastic. And I don't understand why we've never been able to replicate that across Europe and the United States. What is this that we can't have a lot of passion for our university sports that can find it on the TV? I think, at the Caribbean level, if you can do that and drive interest and pride around those competitions, that's all stepping stones, because when you think of it, like, professionalism is far away, but you do have a FIFA Futsal World Cup. You do have a youth, you do have the Youth Olympics now. There's now competitions there for pathways to go to, that for nations not to be thinking, right, we're at an amateur level, let's make it the best amateur competitions. Let's drive pathways and identification routes, because you have these pathways, but you need to understand the talent pool that you have, So that's what I think is important at this time.
And I totally agree with you. If from a Caribbean standpoint, I can let you know straight case that there are organizations in both Martinique and Guadeloupe, including the FACS Futsal Club and Futsal League, who are doing extremely well in terms of their social media. Their social media output is very impressive when it comes to a so-called emerging sport. And I'm very much happy to be able to be affiliated to the team across at FACS, who I think is out of sheer passion and pushing the envelope from an individual and an organizational standpoint that is continuously growing the sport of futsal on those islands. When it comes to the Caribbean, your discussion as regards to amateur and development of amateur leagues is very, very important. I think that the old model of competition-driven um, competition driven should be put aside, and the new model of long-term athletic development should be the focus, whereby we can be able to continuously retain individuals across the spectrum, in spite of their age, in spite of their physiological development and the physiological structure, in spite of when they develop and how they develop, so that you can be able to get the best out of the individuals and also for the sport. So from a business model, it's very important for each Caribbean island to be able to see futsal as not a competitor to football, but as a complementary sport to football, because of the economies of scale, i.e., the number of persons on the island. You cannot see it as a split between football, beach soccer, and futsal, but also in terms of all children on the age of 12 should be able to interact with the ball on all three balls, to be able to say, I had the opportunity to grow and develop using all three sports, whilst I've been a youngster. That is important. Leagues and competitions, more than leagues, should be held. National league should be held, but as you rightfully said, from an amateur standpoint, there should not be a professional league, given the fact that you have to find the sustainability of it, especially when it comes to the introductory stages of it. And then you should be able to have Caribbean-based tournaments, whereby the communication and the connectivity of the Caribbean islands can be showcased from a futsal point of view, similar to what it is we see in the Caribbean and the Caribbean market. And even when it comes to other sports, because when it comes to netball, we have Caribbean competitions. When it comes to swimming, to cycling, to athletics, we have Caribbean competitions. And thus, futsal can be no different to be able to have it. We used to have in the Caribbean, we used to have the Shell Caribbean Cup, which was a major football tournament where you see the likes of Dwight York, Livingston Lewis, Russell Atterby, and Ricardo Gardner, and all of these great football players who went on to make their name in some of the biggest leagues and clubs in the world, who played in that Caribbean Cup. And that is something that we can definitely replicate for futsal. And I'm very much happy to hear you mention and hear you speak to the amateur and development of the amateur level of futsal.
But can I make 2 points on that, though, just to clarify?
Of course.
When I say competition, what I mean is that at this time, for a lot of countries, the competitions are of the competitive nature. That's what they're structured and developed for. But what I'm saying, what we need more of is competitions and leagues, but recreational fun, not driven by seriousness that you have to win, but people showing up to want to play solely for fun. Because what we have to remember is that everyone that plays futsal doesn't necessarily want to join a team, join a club. What they want to do is show up and play. And we don't have enough of that. You know, when I was in Japan, I was able to show up at his leisure center at any time I wanted and just join him with a futsal, you know? And we don't have enough of that. We need to have more just recreational fun, drive the participation of that. And also to touch on what you're saying, like when I go back to the commercial sector and how it views futsal, you said there, that futsal, is complementary to football and is, in a way, brother to football. I think sometimes that comes again to positioning of our sport, and what from my research, I estimate that FIFA says there's over 30 million people playing futsal around the world. That's far from it. There's actually about, I would say, between 60 and 80 million that I'm aware of that are playing futsal around the world. It's huge. But the problem is that how do they see the sport? How do they engage with the sport? How do they perceive the sport? How is it promoted and positioned to them? And in a lot of countries where they're still promoting it as play futsal to be a better football player, if that's all you've ever heard, then that's your outlook of the sport. That determines how you respect the sport. And what I've found talking to people around the world and talking to business people and trying to explain to them why futsal is an opportunity, their respect for it sometimes is like, futsal's just like the wee brother of football, really, isn't it? You know, or five-a-side is just people who never really made it at football and just played at the weekends. Like, is really anybody going to take that seriously? You know, or they have images of overweight men in their 40s trying to lose weight playing on a Friday or a Thursday, or, you know, during the week. That we have huge participation, but not all of them are engaged in our sport. They like to play futsal, but they don't care about it. Do you get what I mean? If you ask them, do you know your national team? Many of them would probably say no. Do you know the clubs in your league? No. Do you know of other nations? No. Because for them, futsal is recreational fun, but it's not something to aspire to. And that we have to, yes, bring more people to our sport always, but we have to ignite within our own futsal, would you call it, community around the world that is so diced up into different perspective of our sport. We need to make them excited because they already know what futsal is. They already understand the game, but they have their outlook of it is wrong at times, and their very lack of awareness of what opportunities there are. So we have an identity issue. We have a serious identity issue in futsal. We need people to be proud to be futsal. And because I remember I met this guy in Japan, and back then I didn't really know what futsal was. You know, I just showed up to play what I thought was five-a-side. And he was wearing a Nagoya Oceans Futsal Club jersey. But I'd never seen that before. I didn't know what that was. And when I asked him what football team it was, the passion in him to make me understand how he was a futsal player. This was a futsal club, not a football club. It'll never leave me. Like, what? This is futsal. I'm a futsal player. And I was like, what's futsal? Because I didn't know. But we need more of that. We need more people to be, I am a futsal player. I'm proud. I am different to a football player. I don't want to be a football player. That's not why I'm playing this sport. I'm playing futsal because I want to be a futsal player. I want to be a futsal coach. I want to be, you know, playing the professional level to aspire to, you know, because when you see like people like I've spoken about many times before, you've got people like Liam Paul Freeman from England who was football. That's what he grew up with. And then he was introduced to futsal. And it was like, where have you been all my life? And he just switched over to futsal because it suited his skill level, suited how he liked to play the game. He enjoyed it a lot more. He's more involved with the game. He liked it better. Now he's a professional futsal player in Italy. Then you've got Alice Evans as well, who was playing for Wales at the international level in football, playing for Cardiff Football Club in the women's game. And she got introduced to futsal, switched. Now she's so proud to be a futsal goalkeeper. And those are the type of people what we need to be building on, is the pride to be futsal.
It's definitely
we don't have that marketing. It's all about futsal football, you know, and we need to be more focused on our game. Let football do its thing. Football people want to say futsal helps with player development. That's fine. But futsal coaches should be developing futsal players for the futsal industry.
Well said. Definitely well said. Stephen, can you believe it's over an hour that we have spoken? And the thing about it is that, I mean, it has been a wonderful conversation, a wonderful introduction to this series. But before we go, it will be amiss of me not to be able to pick your brain as we get ready for next month, which is the tournament. And you remember I spoke to you about it before as regards to, you know, I can't necessarily name the tournament per se, but the tournament, the following are the groupings, and I would like you to choose the top two, your predictions as regards the top two who will be coming out of those groupings. So let's take a look. In Group A, we have Guatemala, Trinidad Tobago, Guadeloupe, Martinique. Who you say will come out of that?
The top two in that
Yeah,
group?
yeah. Just to recall again, Guatemala, Trinidad Tobago, Guadeloupe, and Martinique.
I potentially think it would be Guatemala top of that group and your nation underneath it.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Group B, Panama, Mexico, Suriname, and French Guyana. Just for the sake of repeating, Panama, Mexico, Suriname, and French Guyana, Group B.
To be honest with you, I am not sure about that one because my knowledge of their international teams is not as strong as I would like it to be. And I would like to look at that again. So do you mind if I pass on that one? Because
of course,
I'm not quite sure.
Definitely. Group C, I would consider Group C, Costa Rica, Canada, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic.
It's definitely going to be, in my eyes, between Costa Rica and Canada. But, Canada was so close before, but they lost to Cuba and lost heavily. I think it was like 5-1. My memory serves me correctly. And I think they beat America in the playoffs. And then it's so long ago. I'm trying to remember those games. I remember they lost the opening game, I think 3-2 to Costa Rica, and then beat the next team, the next nation. I forget who that was. And then the Cuba was why they lost out on a place. I think it'll be Costa Rica will win that group and Canada will be behind them. But it would be like, no offense to my Costa Rican brothers and sisters, but if Canada were able to edge it, into it, I think it would be great for the game there. And, I would like to see Canada get into a World Cup once and for all, but I think maybe Costa Rica will edge it again this time. But who knows? Maybe Canada will get there in the next World Cup.
It's interesting you mentioned that because we are supposed to have Chris Hernandez next week on the show for part 2 of the series. But interestingly, I read your article as regards to the Dominican Republic, and I've also seen in recent times that the Dominican Republic have been doing well in terms of league and competitions. That it will be, I really would like to see how they fare.
Me too. It depends who they've recruited because, like I said, they told me they've been doing a lot of recruitment and trying to identify players. But, competition is a different thing,
All the time.
And it's also to do with your experience within them,
Yeah.
And have you been able to keep some of that experience? I haven't seen Canada's squad for the competition, nor Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica retained some of these players from the last World Cup while they've introduced some new youth players. It'll be interesting, but I think Costa Rica just have that experience, and I think that they will win that group.
Definitely. Don't leave out Haiti because they have always been traditionally and historically fighters when it comes to sport and outside of sport. Their resilience as a people is quite amazing, and they show that when it comes to the under-20 girls championship football, that is, and they have been doing extremely well on the women's side of the footballing game. I would love to see what they have been doing in the background when it comes to futsal and their translation of skill to this version of the game. Group D, I call it the group of death. Cuba, USA, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. I leave it over to you, brother, to be able to choose from the group of death.
El Salvador, I think, will win the group.
Wow.
I think potentially. But like I said, Nicaragua's come out of nowhere, and and they done well in the Central American games. They got a bronze, so they could be a surprise. I think USA. It depends on the recruitment that Dusan has done, and I haven't had a chance to see them play. I think that they've been doing preparation here in Europe. I have to check that. I don't know a lot about Cuba. I know they've done well and they qualified for the last World Cup, but maybe Cuba wins it. Maybe it's Cuba, And then who comes second? I don't know. That'll be. I'm really, like you said it, the group of death for sure. I'm really looking forward to see what happens in that group. But I think Cuba could edge it and qualify for the World Cup again.
Very, very, very interesting stuff, Stephen. I really want to say thank you very much for being a part of Futsal868 Corner Talks. And just as much as I learned from you, I hope that you did learn from us. Noting very well that continue to do a great job as regards to covering futsal globally. And we definitely hope to see more articles as regards to futsal in the CONCACAF region. And reach out to me, reach out to us as we be able to expose you to more of the Caribbean and the Caribbean islands. Just a quick shout out to Fax Futsal Club, because do you know that they actually did a futsal cruise, Stephen? They did a futsal cruise. They went to 4 different countries, including Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, and wherever they every single destination, there was a male game and a female game. Futsal, it was brilliant to say the least, and I'm happy to be able to have the team come to Tobago, the beautiful sister island of this Twin Island Republic, and play the game. But that's the kind of interaction that we have been having in the Caribbean region.
So can I congratulate you? Can I congratulate you on something, if you don't mind?
Of course.
I have to say that, you know, when I saw what you did with the emotional intelligence and how you really tried to drive a conversation around that and tried to engage with other organizations, and you did the workshops as well for young people and children, I thought that was fantastic. And for the viewers watching, if you have not seen Jeffrey's interviews when it comes to emotional intelligence, I encourage you to go to his YouTube page and to watch those interviews, because it was fantastic and I really enjoyed it. And it's something that I find very interesting, not just from a sporting perspective, but from a life perspective, because when we have mental health issues rising all around the world, I think that emotional intelligence and the education of it is imperative. It's so important. And I just want to thank you for taking that up and trying to drive that in Trinidad and Tobago. I thought that was great. So congratulations on that, Jeffrey.
Thanks very much, Stephen. And to be honest with you, Stephen, I think that we may have to do another part 2 to this. We may have to do it after the championship in May, so we could be able to see what's happening. By then, you'll have more content as regards to CONCACAF, and we definitely could be able to speak more as regards to Caribbean, North America, and Latin America. This has been Futsal868 Corner Talks with Futsal Focus. A beautiful pleasure, brother. I know it's after 10. It's after 10, yes?
Yep, where I am, yeah.
I know you go to bed late, but I'm going to give you opportunity to spend quality time with your family. So once again, Stephen, have a blessed week, and thank you very much, brother.
Thank you. You take care. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, cheers. Have a good one. And that was Stephen Mugatakon, the founder, managing director of Futsal Focus, a world acclaimed publication as regards to the sport of futsal, doing extremely great. It has been an honor to be able to have him on the show. As a matter of fact, Stephen and I have been speaking about this for a few months. Well, we have been planning this since November of last year. Interestingly enough, Stephen was always shy, always wanted to be behind the scenes in pushing and promoting. And of the 10 years that he has been promoting the show, it's only now that he has come in front of the camera. Our show is not the first, but it's only now that he has come in front of the camera to be able to push the sport of futsal some more and be able to show persons who he is and what he do. And I want to say thank you very much to everyone. As you all see, it is very important to continue to like, follow, subscribe to Futsal868. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So please do like, subscribe, follow. Really and truly like you to continue to be a part of who we are and what we do. As we wind down for today's show, we would like you to also be a part of our Future Race Challenge. Have you our Olympian, National Olympian, Cleopatra Borrell? She has taken up the challenge.
happy to announce that the Cleopatra Burrell Foundation will be partnering with Futsal868 on their virtual race challenge to stop violence against women.
The race is virtual, but the sweat is real. Contact us via WhatsApp 787-7678. And for our international viewers, that's 1-868-787-7678. It can be done anywhere at any time. We have extended, because of the overwhelming response, we have extended the challenge 1 until June the 4th. So you still have time. Contact us. We'll give you all the information, the links, where to go. raceroster.com. That's www.raceroster.com. Search word Futsal868, and you get all the information as regards to being a part of this great challenge. As we end, we want to say thank you very much to one and all. And remember, it is Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. He is risen. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ paid the price for us today. Without him, I can tell you, definitely, I wouldn't be here. And I would say thank you very much to one and all for being a part of another wonderful edition of Futsal868. Wishing you a great and wonderful week ahead. Be blessed, as always.